What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and I'm here to let you know that Flora and Ulysses is no perfect movie, but chances are you probably knew that, and you were probably also wondering why in the living hell I would watch, let alone review, a Disney Plus movie about a little girl whose family starts to slowly reconcile with each other after they've been separated and after she adopts a squirrel with superpowers. Really riveting stuff, I know, but there were a couple of reasons that made me want to check this out in the first place. I had no idea this even existed until I found out that the main cast of DuckTales all had side roles within this film, and it kind of reminded me of why I love the show so much in the first place. Even though it technically is a show where every character walks around commando. Yeah, favorite show on TV right now, just throwing that out there. In my opinion, DuckTales is a prime example of how a kid's show, let alone a kid's show on Disney Channel, can have much more engaging, fleshed out character arcs than some adult oriented shows, and more importantly, be just as, if not more, entertaining. So I felt like I had a little bit of an obligation to, at the very least, give this movie a chance, because there was some potential, in my opinion, for this to be an above average kids movie, and on top of that, I also wanted to see how much blackmail these actors must have had if they had to be called in to do this movie. I mean, for starters, the guy who plays Louie, his introduction is reading a DuckTales comic book right in front of the camera. And you know something? I would read more DuckTales comics if they were all fucking available, but they're not. Fix that, Disney. And with Danny Pudi's case, who plays Huey on the show, he actually worked with this director on her last film, The Tiger Hunter, so I felt like that part was maybe a little bit more of a genuine favor, but in any case, there were actually a lot more positives than I thought there were going to be with this movie. For starters, even though she's never worked with CGI before, Lena Khan actually did a great job at directing the scenes that feature Ulysses alongside the other actors. The expressions, the textures, and the fur on the squirrel all look photorealistic. There are a lot of scenes where he has to interact with real life objects that move alongside him. They're blended so seamlessly. And even though there are a few shots that obviously don't, especially whenever a human is attacked by an animal, you can tell that it's CG because there are no scratch marks on their clothes whatsoever, and they're just flailing around their body because they have no idea where to look. Those scenes are still filmed in such a self aware, cartoonish way that it was hard for me not to at least snicker a little bit every now and then. I will say, though, like, the most defining features about her directorial style, at least for this movie, were some comic book scene transitions where it starts off with a still panel to kind of montage over what these characters were going through before the start of this movie, and then it'll transition where the panel comes to life and they look incredibly miserable now. And I thought those transitions were really cool. There was also a huge missed opportunity where she imagines the superheroes that her father draws and writes as a hobby because he's a comic book artist, where they kind of look at her and kind of react whenever she's reflecting on how bad of a situation she's in. I wish there were more scenes like that as opposed to Flora just narrating everything about the movie through exposition. But a part of me wonders if Khan really had that much involvement with that aspect, given that there are so many cliched and conventional aspects of the story and the comedy. But I will say this, Khan is also really good at directing actors, because she gets some natural and genuinely dramatic performances out of children who are making their debut, and big name actors who are primarily known for really exaggerated comedy, and they get to show off their chops here. Matilda Lawler as Flora, in my opinion, is really good at avoiding certain Disney tropes where the kid is either too wide-eyed and curious or just doesn't have enough energy and really doesn't seem like she wants to be there. She finds the right balance as this girl who regards herself as a cynic, but right from scene one, you can tell through her expressions and the way she interacts with her parents that she doesn't want to see herself as a cynic. She's just really tired of her mom and dad being so afraid to talk about their feelings and what went wrong, went wrong in their relationship. I don't know why I keep stuttering on that. She sees them trying to avoid their feelings at all costs, and she takes that as a sign that life just isn't as fun as it used to be, until she meets Ulysses, who survives being run over by a lawnmower, which she takes as a sign that he is a superhero, which, admittedly, yeah, that is a pretty good sign. And when she does flat out reveal Ulysses' existence to her parents, because she's actually one of the few kids that doesn't immediately, well, okay, she does immediately try to hide the squirrel, and then she realizes there's absolutely no point. They're going to find out. I'll just show this superhero squirrel, and they're not going to be able to dispute that it has superpowers. And weirdly enough, they don't dispute that the squirrel has superpowers, because usually in a movie like this, when they're hiding this animal that they find in the backyard or whatever that turns out to be special, they instantly like shun their daughter and go, oh, well, that's just absurd. Squirrels don't have superpowers. Or if they would see the powers themselves, they would go, oh my god, we are imagining something, we've gone crazy. That never happens in this movie. When Ulysses shows his powers, they instantly believe that it was real. They believe their daughter, which not only was a huge change of pace for a movie like this, but it legitimately made me believe that these parents could actually patch things up with each other, because they're, for the most part, smart and sound adults, which is rare for a Disney movie. And I'm not kidding when I say this. The best performance in Flora and Ulysses is from Ben Schwartz, of all people. Which is interesting, because I'm not really a big fan of his comedy, and it took me a while for me to really like him as a character on DuckTales, and once in a while his Dewey or Sonic voice, whichever one you prefer, slips out once in a while when he's super excited, but in a way that actually still fits the character very nicely, because for the first half hour, he's a depressed, cynical human being. He feels as if his work as a comic book artist has seemingly failed. He's treated poorly at his job at this one Staples type of store, and whenever his daughter tries to re-spark his imagination and remind him of the magic he used to believe in, all he can think of was the end result and how it failed. So it absolutely makes sense why he's a total cynic, but as soon as he sees Ulysses demonstrate his powers, he instantly snaps out of it. And from then on, he becomes a very likable, supportive, and wonderful father figure. The best scene in the entire movie is a montage of him jamming out to Tom Jones at work. And the reason it's the best scene in the movie is because you really get to see him just be a regular human being and goof off in a way that you can tell he hasn't done in an extremely long time. He's riding on a rolling chair, decorating a sign with these colored tack pins, and blasting the song on the work intercom. Like, all this stuff was just fun to watch, and you could tell that he feels really reinvigorated and feels as if he can do anything he wants with his life. And that was what made him the best character, even though there are a lot of stupid moments in the film where he resorts to his usual Parks and Rec material where he's a complete doofus, but he thinks he's got it all made. Which is kind of the problem with Flora and Ulysses. As much dramatic heft as there is to certain characters, the story and the comedy itself is so cliched and formulaic that if kids were watching this, I could legitimately see them predicting what was going to happen next. As soon as this girl finds this squirrel, you know for a fact that the squirrel is going to be obsessed with food because she has to feed him something. You know that he's going to be so obsessed that whenever he reveals himself within a room, all the adults are going to freak out, think he's a rabid animal, trash the place like it's nobody's business, and blame the squirrel because, yeah, it's a squirrel's fault that you had to take a frying pan and bash a table and your entire house. And if you're going to say, oh, well, there are people who spark those flames in real life, they don't act like this. I wouldn't mind these cliches if the characters acted like actual human beings, but they don't. They act like cartoon characters. You know for a fact that Danny Pudi, as the evil animal control officer, is going to instantly think that Ulysses is the actual bad guy. He's going to think he's all that, even though he cannot hit a target with his tranq gun to save his life, or defend himself from a cat to save his life, because that is a recurring bit of him getting mauled by a cat. And not gonna lie, once in a while it was kind of funny, but yeah, and you know for a fact that once he actually does capture Ulysses, because why wouldn't he at the last 20 minutes of the movie, you know there's going to be a prison break / chase or whatever for no real reason whatsoever, other than it's exciting and it's a very forced way for the family to get back together in such really tragic and intense times. I wouldn't mind all of these cliches if, for one thing, the family dynamic of a separated family was actually explored in detail, but they really don't go into detail about it. The excuse they give for why they separated in the first place, I did not buy for a split second. It felt like the weakest reason to split apart to begin with. And when the two of them actually do start to come together and resolve their differences, the movie makes reconciling with your spouse seem a lot easier than it actually is in real life. And I think kids who watch this movie are going to be so confused. You're not going to understand this unless you were a kid whose parents separated yourself. So this didn't really do a good job at preparing kids for something that might happen to them in life. And the pacing goes by so quickly that there are so many side characters that really get the shaft, that were a lot more interesting, but no, we get these more cartoony side characters who are a lot more annoying than they are funny. Danny Pudi can be hilarious. I don't like Community, but I liked him in it. I wished he had more to do as Huey in DuckTales, which is insane because season 3 is his season and he still barely does shit, but that's another video in and of itself. But I was really excited to see him be a villain. I knew he was going to be a joke character, but that's what I wanted for him. Kate Micucci, who plays Webby and also plays his side love interest, who also legitimately believes Ulysses is nothing but evil, that would be a really great opportunity too. I would love to see them have chemistry or bounce off of each other, but that never really happens. The most Danny Pudi gets is, again, fail to hit a target with his tranq gun and get mauled by a cat. And Kate Micucci, she's just there to look weird, which, honestly, she was funnier in Big Bang Theory than she was in this. But yeah, like, I wanted more scenes with those two characters in particular, or this one mentor figure who lives in Ben Schwartz's apartment who gives all the sage advice. She was a really great character, and I wish my mind wasn't blanking on the actor's name because she gave a really good performance. But no, we have to spend more time on Alyson Hannigan as the mother, who is ungodly annoying. She can't take the slightest bit of criticism from anyone, which is why she's so needy and locks out everyone in her life, including her daughter and husband. It's really no wonder that she's separated in the first place. Or this really, really damn awkward subplot involving a kid with hysterical blindness that becomes Flora's best friend. Now, before anyone freaks out, let me make something clear. You can make good blind jokes. If you have ever seen Avatar, Rogue One, or Daredevil, you know that you can make a blind joke without being an asshole. But here's the thing. The movie's problem with this is, the problem isn't that there are blind jokes, it's that they're the easiest and laziest blind jokes that you can possibly think of, where the kid is so convinced he can use echolocation, or if he smells something or someone, People are going to bitch and moan about this, and they changed it to hysterical blindness mostly so they would have less of a reason to complain. Look at today's culture. They're going to do it anyways. I don't know. I wasn't sure what to expect from a movie that was written by the guy who made Wild Hogs with Tim Allen, but there were some above average moments. The effects, some of the direction, the performances, and the writing that was good made me wish that the end result for Flora and Ulysses was a lot better, but I will say this, considering this is a Disney comedy where there are jokes about tranq guns, rabies, dying, so many weird things that you cannot imagine seeing on Disney Channel or in any Disney movie, it does give me hope that Cruella may in fact be the Disney version of Joker, and it also gives me hope that Disney hasn't completely sucked up to political correctness culture. Just most part. Fucking pussies. Anyways, I'm going to give Flora and Ulysses a 2 out of 5, but, I'm glad I saw it. Wasn't a huge waste of time. Guys, thanks as always for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you have seen Flora and Ulysses and what you thought of it. What's your favorite Disney Plus original movie? Because there's actually a few I haven't seen yet. And whichever they are, let me know in the comments below. Be sure to stay tuned for more reviews, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.